Today is April 18th, 2018. My name is Joe Todd. This is an interview with Dave Weldon in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Sir, where were you born?
I was born in Bartlesville, Oklahoma,
Yeah. When's your birthday?
October 3rd, 1947.
Who was your father?
Gilbert E. Weldon.
And your mother?
Ruth E. Weldon.
What was her maiden name?
Douglas,
Douglas.
with two S's.
You go through school in Bartlesville?
Yes, I did.
You graduated what year?
1966.
1966. From Bartlesville High School? College High?
College High.
Who was your favorite teacher?
Probably Dr. Smith, Dale Smith, music teacher.
Why was he your favorite?
Well, I think he got along with the kids. He related more to the kids than a lot of them did, and he was more, I don't know, he was kind of more in tune with the students. I don't want to say needs, but their antics and that kind of thing. And he was always fun, you know. But I think a choir teacher, music teacher, is always fun anyway, because we did the school plays and musicals and stuff, and so we had a lot of interaction there.
What plays were you in?
I was in, I played in the Navy, in the, you'd have to ask me that. Just went blank. Luther Billis. I played Luther Billis in
South Pacific.
South Pacific. Thank you. That was it. Yeah.
Oh, he lives in Branson now.
Yes, he
Yes.
does live in Branson. He came here for just a little while here a couple of years ago because he was going to come back here,
Yeah.
and but it didn't work out, so he went back.
Okay.
It didn't work out.
What type of work your father do?
Dad was the assistant manager of the Baughman Lumber Company.
As a boy, what chores do you do around the house?
Dusted, vacuumed, did the dishes, took out the trash, cleaned the bathroom. I can't think of anything I didn't do. Mow the lawn, you know, depending on what day it was and whose turn it was. Had to share that with both of my brothers, you know, so we kind of shared the chores.
Okay. Now, was your mother was your mother a music teacher?
Part-time, she was a music teacher on her own. She was not a certified music teacher as in school, but she taught piano to anyone who was that interested in.
So I think everyone in town knew her.
Yeah, just about,
Yeah.
because we attended every church that was in town, just
Yeah.
about any kind of music thing that was going on, music program.
Yeah. In high school, what'd you do for recreation?
In high school, recreation, I worked. It seemed like I had a paper route, and I worked at the gas station after high school. We would drive up and down Main Street, I guess, in the evening, nighttime, weekends, drive up and down Main. I didn't play golf or anything like that. I didn't have any.
Climb Circle Mountain?
Oh yeah, we went to Circle Mountain.
What'd you do?
But we lived over by Circle Mountain when I was just small.
Where?
You know, right there on 4th Street.
Okay.
On I can't remember the house number, but it's right the street that runs right in front of it.
At
And,
Sunset.
yeah, Sunset, and we lived right there, and I played on the mound before when it was just rocks.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
rocks and dirt. There weren't any grass, trees, or anything like
Well, what
that.
about Circle Mountain?
Circle Mountain? I never got on Circle Mountain. I never messed with Circle Mountain. There wasn't anything over there. It was just trees and rocks. You know, it wasn't.
What were the big stores in Bartlesville when you were in high school?
IGA Food Liner was where we traded.
Where's that located?
Well, it's down by the Price Tower.
Okay.
At the bottom of the Price Tower. Was. It's not there now. Went to Menenches some, and then over to Robinson's, over off of Virginia, and can't remember this.
It was that 2nd Street?
Well, yeah, it's one that runs in front of the police department.
That's Hensley now.
Yeah, Hensley. Yeah.
I think it's 2nd Street back then.
Well, it might have been.
Yeah.
It might have been. And then we went to, there was a butcher shop out on the highway towards Pahuska. There was no butcher shop out there where we'd get some meat and stuff. It was just on top of the hill outside the airport.
Radar Hill, what was out there?
Radar Hill, that would have probably been when we had the radar up there for it to be seen. For then the Air Force was still there at that time, and we had the sphere or the ball, whatever you want to call it, for getting our time at that. There was Air Force people there at that time. Of course, that was back in the 50s.
Yeah.
And then they went and knocked it off.
Yep.
Yeah.
How many movie theaters were in Bartlesville?
One, two, I think. Two. I'm going to say two in Bartlesville. Number two I went to. Yeah,
Hold it. What were the names of them?
Osage and the Arrow Theaters. Yeah. Or America the Beautiful to take that.
Yeah. Okay. What did you do after high school?
After high school, I worked at Sinclair, and
where'd you work after high school?
After high school, I was still working at the paper office, the Examiner Enterprise, working there, and then at the Deep Rock gas station, and at the funeral home, the Niekamp Funeral Home, Keeley Niekamp Funeral Home.
What did you do there?
I was an apprentice embalmer and kind of a night watchman. They had to have somebody spend the night in there in case there was a fire or some kind of great catastrophe of something to get everybody out, you know. And I did that summer that I graduated. That was
about Niekamp, down in the basement.
okay.
There was a tunnel heading towards downtown. No one ever could tell me what it was.
I don't remember a tunnel. There was a storage area down there where they stored caskets and stuff.
Well, this guy, I met a guy, his name was Forrest. He came from Alaska and he worked at Niekamp for a couple of years. And he took me down and showed me this tunnel. There was an old rear end of an old Packard in there, and it was heading towards downtown, but no one could ever tell me what it was.
I never saw anything but storage down there.
Okay.
There wasn't an old Packard down there when I was there.
Well, it's just a rear end.
But I remember that guy you're talking about. He in fact, I took his place.
Oh, okay.
When they found out he wasn't who he said he was.
Oh, well, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. He wasn't who he said he was.
Oh.
He kind of suckered him in.
Oh. But
Yeah.
he seemed like a nice guy. He was
Yeah.
there
Oh
for
yeah.
a year or two, and then
He was a nice guy.
then
You know, Mom liked him,
and then he was gone.
but she found out he was a phony.
So how long do you work at the paper and Niekamps and?
Well, I started at the newspaper when I was 14, delivering newspapers, and then I, if you want to use the word graduated, to the inserter thing where I inserted the comics into the Sunday paper. Then I delivered the actual papers to the paper boys out in rural areas like Ramona and Vera and Caney and Copan. You know, I took the papers up there and did that. But I had a route down on Chickasaw, and the other route was on Armstrong. and that was when I was 14, 15 years old. Then I had a route out going out to Osage Hills, just outside Labadie Heights. I had that all out there, a rural route out there, because I had a scooter. I had me an old Cushman scooter back then. So
I was going to ask how you deliver these papers all around.
I deliberately took that job so I could buy a scooter. I wanted a motor scooter. And Mom said I had to earn my own money to get it. So I immediately went down to the paper office and got me a job being paper boy.
Yeah.
My payments were $10 a month.
Who ran the newspaper?
Who ran it?
I guess who was publisher or whatever.
I was going to say Reynolds was the publisher. The circulation manager was Vernon. That's all I can remember, Vernon. He was a circulation manager then. I also took us in with Howard. He was the paper boy manager, if you will. Where he'd pass out all the papers to the paper boys. And he ended up getting the Mistletoe Express deal here in Bartlesville.
Okay.
And I worked for him part-time a little bit during that time, once I got my driver's license. So, did that.
So how long did you do all these jobs? How many you worked for the summer or for a year or two? Or?
Well, the summer and after school. The summer, of course, was full-time, depending on, when I say full-time, I'm talking Monday through Friday type jobs. But I always worked at somewhere else on weekends and nights, at gas station. And of course, I was going to be a mechanic, so I worked at the gas station. And of course, me and my friends worked on cars together, swapped out engines and stuff, that kind of thing.
What about being an apprentice in Walmart?
Well, see, that was at night. I did that. They had to have somebody there at nighttime to spend the night. They had a studio apartment in the top floor of the funeral home. So I was, if you want to call me a night watchman, but they had a bedroom up there and a little kitchen and all that little apartment. And I stayed up there. And the idea was that if there was a fire, I was to get everybody out. He said, don't worry about anything, but just push them out, get them out through the garage and get them out of there. And that
So
was,
there were people there at night?
well, yeah, they, corpses, whatever, that would have been, if there'd have been a fire and they had lost any of those, there would have probably been lawsuits all over
So you
the
had to
place.
get the bodies out.
Get the bodies out.
Oh, okay.
That was my main job,
Okay.
was to do that. So I'd spend the night there. I had to be there by 10 o'clock at night, between 10 and 11 at night. And then I'd get up at 6:30, 7, go to school.
Okay.
And then, every night that's kind of where I stayed. I got a couple of nights off. They give me a couple of nights off during the week. But
Everything of being a mortician?
oh yeah, I went to Central State to do that. That was what I was going to do. I decided, well, that was I thought, a respected job.
Now, when did you go to Central State?
In 67, 68, well, 66 and 67.
Yeah.
Because then I got drafted that summer. After I went 1 year at Central, and then got drafted. So I only spent 1 month at Sinclair, because that's when I got my draft notice.
So you were drafted when?
In July of 1967.
July 1967. Now, were you drafted into the Navy?
No, I just got my draft notice to report to the draft board. And when I showed it to my dad, and he said that's the same one he got during World War II. He said, go down there and talk to the recruiters and find out anything you can do besides going to the Army. Anything you can do besides going in the Army, because all you're going to learn how to do is dig a ditch and shoot a rifle. And that was his experience during World War II. So, okay. So I went down there and first desk I came to was a Navy recruiter, and he saw my draft paper. He reached into the desk drawer and pulled out my file. When I handed him that paper, he pulled out my file, opened it up, found my name, and he said, "Oh, your test scores are pretty high."
He had your file?
He had a file on me, where you took those tests in school and all that stuff,
yes,
and
yes.
you registered for the draft board
Yes.
and everything. You gave them that, and I guess they sent him those test scores apparently to the draft board, and he had those. And he said, "Well, you scored high enough on your test." He said, "You can do just about any job you want to do, and that kind of thing. And I can cut you a deal, send you to school, and you'll learn a trade." And at that time, because I was working at the funeral home had an airplane, and I got real interested in flying that plane. And I went down and got my solo
Now, where'd you take your flight training?
down at Bartlesville at the airport there at Ed. What was his name? Ed's Flying Service is what it was called. I was trying to think of his last name. Ed Brown. I think that was it.
Okay.
Brown's Flying Service. I think Ed's, and he had the planes, and I rented a little Cessna 150 and was learning how to fly. I had 10 hours.
When were you taking your flight lessons?
When? During the summer. Doing the summer and after school.
Excuse me. Tell me about your solo flight.
After I had 4 hours of going up with my instructor, and of course the whole thing was just learning how to land and take off, was all there was to that one. And after I had 4 hours, we'd gone up and gone through some maneuvers and things, and he taught me how to land the plane. And when I landed it that particular day, I had between 4 and 5 hours under my belt, and he just climbed out of the plane, and he said, "Okay, this is your solo. Go up and take it around the field and land it." And by myself, so anyway, I got in there and took off, normal takeoff type deal, and went around the field, and I started to descend to land, and it wouldn't go down. I couldn't get it to go down. Couldn't get the plane to go down. I'd push down, it'd go back up. I'd push it down, it'd go back up. And I was like, "What am I doing wrong? I can't get down." And then it finally dawned on me, you got to pull power back. I had to full throttle in that thing, man, and it was wanting to fly. So I pulled back on the throttle. The next go around, I went around twice and came in. And when I taxied up to the office, and he came out and he said, "Forgot to pull back on the throttle, didn't you?" I said, "Yep, I did." He said, "You'll never forget that." And I said, "Yeah, you're right. I won't forget that." Never did. But I went over there and flew every chance I got, which wasn't a lot.
Yeah.
Like
So
I
you
said.
got your pilot's license.
Oh no, I only had 10 hours.
Oh,
That's
okay.
all I had. Then I got drafted.
Oh.
I got my draft notice,
Yeah.
and went in the military.
Yeah.
When I went in and talked to him, I thought I was going to have about 2 weeks, because it told me to report at the end of the month. And when I went in and he pulled my deal out, and he said, "Well, I had 3 days." He said, "Pack your bags. You're catching the bus Wednesday." I said, "Well, if I was going to get drafted, I wasn't going to leave for 2 weeks." And he said, "If you want to go with them, you can leave in 2 weeks. If you're going with me, you're leaving Wednesday." And I said, "Okay." I'd already signed up then,
So when did you join the Navy?
July 14th, 1967,
Where'd you go for boot camp?
San Diego.
How'd you travel to San Diego?
Flew to Oklahoma City. We took a bus to Oklahoma City, and then after my physical and all that stuff, then we flew from Oklahoma City to San Diego.
Okay. Tell me about boot camp.
Boot camp was very eye-opening, to put it mildly. I had, of course, I guess being raised by my mom and dad, they were pretty strict disciplinarians, so that wasn't a problem for me like it was some of the other boys that were in there. And it was very regimented, and you didn't have to worry about anything, because they told you exactly what you were going to do, when you were going to do it, and how you were going to do it. So I didn't have to worry about making any decisions or anything.
What type of training did you have in boot camp?
Well, besides classroom, we had a lot of classroom training, and and then marching and drills. We had the rifle drills, close order drills. I remember a lot of marching and that kind of thing. You found out later that was all for the graduation ceremony. That's what that was all about, you know. But carrying that rifle around and just polishing it.
We talked about boot camp and the classrooms and all this and marching.
We had, different guys in the company. It was Company 400, and different guys in there had different job assignments that they did. And I was the laundry petty officer. I was picked to be the guy in charge of the laundry, to get sure that the laundry was done and taken over there. And one of the deals was the company commander came in after we'd done all our classroom work for the day, and then we had to take tests. We had to take these tests, and we didn't score very good for our whole company. And he came in there and chewed us out pretty good that we were, doing it. We had about 6 Filipino boys in there, and they weren't very good on their English and that kind of thing. They could talk English, but reading and comprehending what they were doing, I think they rushed them through on the tests, and they didn't score very well. Well, they brought the whole scores down for the company. So he told us we needed to talk to them and sit down and figure out how to raise our scores. So our education petty officer, who was assigned, that was his job. He was the one who scored the highest on all the tests, and he put him in charge to bring all our test scores up. So we came up with a way to do that. So it might have been a little bit of cheating, maybe, but not really.
What's your most vivid memory of boot camp?
My most vivid memory, probably mail call, was probably the highlight of boot camp, was getting mail from home, and waiting for the mail to come. Of course, then graduation was the next best thing that ever happened. I made it, because I wasn't sure there for a while. I was over there 13 weeks, and first few weeks were just kind of standing around picking up cigarette butts all the time for everybody. Then we finally got into our dungarees and into uniform and that kind of thing. But
Now, did you discuss Vietnam in boot camp?
not really. It wasn't. It was kind of talked about, around, but we just, as a rule, we didn't sit around and do that, because we had to polish our shoes and wash our clothes and all that at the end of the day after we attended classes all day, and get ready for the next day. And we were pretty tired by the time then. We had our letter writing time back at the barracks, and a lot of it was just shooting the bull and finding out where everybody was from, and that kind of thing, just telling stories.
What about your petty officers in boot camp? The instructors.
The instructors.
Drill instructors.
Yeah, the drill instructors. I didn't know anything, of course, about the Navy way of doing things at that time, and I didn't understand their ranking structure as I do now. But they were all very sharp, and it was all. Well, you had to sit down. You had to listen real close, because they didn't mess around. They just went through. They went through it and told you, and you either got it or you didn't. Type deal. Learning how to tie all those sailors' knots, and stuff, and then going to probably the most fun in boot camp was going to the firefighting school and rifle training. Going through the rifle training, because we got to leave the base and go out and picnic at the rifle range and shoot guns and go through fire training, gas masks and all that kind of stuff.
Had you seen the ocean before?
Nope, not until I went to San Diego.
First time you saw the ocean, what'd you think?
It was big and blue, big and blue, wet. It never really dawned on me that I was going to be on it, you know. I thought after being there in boot camp and stuff, that was going to be my life. I was going to do this every day, you know. I didn't have any idea what it was really going to be like after boot camp.
Now, did you train on like abandoned ship or whatever in boot camp? How do you?
Yeah.
What type of training did you have to abandon ship?
Well, they had the USS, what they call that thing? I was trying to remember the name of it. It was a fake ship that was set down in the middle of a parking lot, but it had all the accoutrements to it, you know, but it was a very small little destroyer type ship, and that's where we practiced going, you know, port, starboard, and aft, and stern, and forward, and up and down, and run port to starboard, that kind of thing. You know, when you're abandoning the ship, and you learn how to get from one end to the other, tie all the knots, moor the ship, throw the lines out, and tie up the ship, that kind of thing. It was just practice deal. It was sitting in cement in the parking lot, in this big lot.
So from boot camp, where'd you go?
After boot camp, I went to Memphis, Tennessee, to A school.
What is A school?
A school is fundamental aviation school, because I had already been, you know, picked aviation as my career choice.
Did you request aviation?
I didn't really request it because I didn't know anything about it at the time. But while I was in boot camp, they asked me, you know, what I liked to do, and I was a mechanic. I told them I liked being a mechanic, working on cars and that kind of stuff. And I had flown a little bit on that private plane. He said, "Oh, do you like aviation?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I like aviation." Well, he said, "Well, how about an aviation mechanic?" I said, "Okay, sounds good." So he said, "We'll send you to school and teach you that kind of thing." So I went to Memphis from there, and became what they call a striker for aviation.
What base is at Memphis?
NAS Memphis is right outside of Memphis and Millington.
NAS Memphis?
Yeah, well, that's what it was called, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was Millington, actually.
Okay.
Millington, Tennessee, which is 15 miles up north of Memphis.
So what type of training did you have in aviation school?
I was trained as a structural mechanic there then branched off of that. You just went to basic 2 weeks of learning metal, how to work with metal and aluminum and that kind of thing, rivet guns and welding and how to detect cracks, things, you know, just general aviation type, all kinds of stuff with the airplane. Then after that 2 weeks, then I went into my actual trade, which was called an AME, which is environmental, structural mechanic environmental.
It's called what? A&E?
AME.
AME.
AME. There was a AME, AMH, and AMS. AMH was hydraulics, and AMS was structural, and AME was environmental.
Okay.
So there I learned aircraft air conditioning systems, pressurization systems, fire extinguishing systems, ejection seats, canopy systems, bleed air systems. That was all that's what I was trained in, to work on the aircraft, work on the plane. And that took 3 months, you know, to go through all that training. So then after I got graduated from there, then I went to Hawaii. Went to Barbers Point, NAS Barbers Point, Hawaii.
How'd you get to Hawaii?
Flew,
Okay.
yeah, flew to Hawaii.
What'd you do at Barber's Point?
I was in a VR-21 heavy cargo squadron.
VR-21.
VR-21. We had C-118s and C-130s aircraft, which were built back in the 40s. Well, the C-118s were back in the 40s. C-130s were a lot newer aircraft. Then most of them built in the 60s. And we hauled cargo and passengers, you know, troops from Hawaii over to Vietnam, anywhere in the Pacific, you know, that they needed to go. We hauled some CBs over.
Now, what was your job on the ship?
On the ship, when I got to the ship, Well, I was in another squadron then. I was in a VAW 114 squadron.
VAW 114? What is VAW 114?
It's the VA stands for shipboard, and the W is a warning designation. Our aircraft, we were the only planes on the aircraft carrier that had props. Everything else was jets.
No, what ship are you on?
The USS Kitty Hawk.
USS Kitty Hawk.
Yeah.
What number is the Kitty Hawk?
61. 63, excuse me.
Is that CV?
CVA.
CVA 63. When did you go aboard the Kitty Hawk?
I went on the Kitty Hawk in August of 69.
69. What was your job on the Kitty Hawk? What'd you do?
Like I said, I was in the squadron. I was in VAW 114. We had 4 airplanes that we kept flying. They were actually control towers. They were flying control towers. They had a radar on top of it. We called it a flying saucer because a lot of people mistook that radar as a flying saucer stealing our planes, and they'd call in whenever they'd see it flying over. They'd say, "Flying saucer just took your plane." You know, it was funny. But it would go out over the ocean to over Vietnam, wherever their range was, and then it would direct all the different aircraft to different spots, you know, wherever they needed to go to, because it had control over all the fighters and the bombers, and it would send them to different targets depending on what they were told to do.
Now, what was your specific job at VAW 114? What did you do?
Well, I worked on oxygen systems. I worked on the heating system. Worked on the egress systems and the electronic cooling systems that kept all the electronics cool in there. It's called a vapor cycle system, and that was pretty much what I did on that particular aircraft.
Okay. Did you have a title to do all this? What is there a name for this?
Structural mechanic, environmental. That's all there is as far as that. There isn't any. I was an AM, aviation structural mechanic E.
Okay.
So aviation maintenance.
Where are your quarters on the Kitty Hawk?
They were underneath number 3 wire.
What is number 3 wire?
There was 4. We called them wires, which is what the airplane catches when they come aboard. When they fly aboard, have a tail hook, and there's 4 cables that stretch across the flight deck. 1, 2, 3, 4. And my rack was immediately under number 3 wire, right at the aft end of the ship. And I could, from my bunk, I could reach up, reach up and touch like that, and that was the flight deck, right on my hand right there. And I had to get used to hearing that aircraft crash. They call it a controlled crash when those things come in, because they come in at full power and then smash down, so that tail hook will grab that cable and yank them back before they roll off the other.
Now, I was told at full power, so if they miss it, they can take off.
That's right. Sometimes the tail hook would skip. You know, if they didn't hit it just right, it would bounce and hit the deck, and it might bounce over the cable instead of catching the cable, because the cable stood up off the ground, off the deck, about 6 inches high, and they were to catch that cable. And if they missed it or it bounced over it, they still had full power. They could just go right off the end of the deck and make a go around, come around again, you know, and try it again. They had 3 tries to do that. If they didn't get it after 3 tries, they were sent to the beach. They told them, you know, don't come back, just go to the beach and land there.
The beach?
Well, we called it the beach, ashore. Go ashore.
Okay.
We called it go to the beach. They call it bingo. Bingo to the beach. And they would bingo to the beach.
Now, where would the beach be?
It would be somewhere over in, depending on what country we're in. In Vietnam, it was probably Tan Son Nhut.
Okay.
They'd probably land in Tan Son Nhut there in Vietnam. And
So it'd be an Air Force base or Navy base or something where they'd land?
yeah.
They would land on the beach?
No.
Okay.
They just called it going to the beach. Anytime you're off the ship, you're on the beach.
Okay.
You're either float or you're on the beach.
Okay.
You know, one or the other. That's just kind of a general term for being on land.
Okay. Now, what airplanes besides the radar airplane did you have on the Kitty Hawk?
We had fighters, we had F-14s, A-7s, A-3s, A-6s, Phantoms, the F-4. I said the 14. 14, 4. Seems like there was another one in there somewhere. We had tankers. We had the tankers, the fighters, the bombers, and our electronics planes. We were all basically electronics. That whole airplane was just nothing but electronics.
Okay. Did you work on one plane, or did you work on several planes?
I worked on that particular plane, which is called an E-2. It was an E-2 plane, and there's 4 of them in our squadron, so I worked on all 4 of those planes.
Okay. And you worked on all the environmental stuff on all 4 planes?
All 4 planes.
Okay.
Whatever they needed, yeah.
Where was your general quarters on the Kitty Hawk?
My general quarter station was up forward, right underneath the flight deck, and I can't tell you the bulkhead number. I just knew where it was. That's my shop, where I worked out of my shop.
What were you to do during general quarters?
You reported to your shop during general quarters,
Okay.
and then they would tell you what to do if they needed anything to do, from there. We didn't run general quarter. We ran a couple of general quarters drills when we started out, when we left San Diego, just to get everybody familiar with how to travel, up and down, what holes, what hatches, and all that kind of stuff, because, that's 1,000 feet you'd have to run from, if you were in the back, had to run all the way to the front, because ours was all the way to the front, but I slept in the back.
Okay.
So when they went to general quarters, I had to make my way all the way to the front of the ship to get to my shop, where I worked out of my shop. That was my general quarters.
When you went on board the Kitty Hawk in Hawaii, where did the ship go?
Well, we left San Diego and went to Hawaii, and then from Hawaii we went to the Philippines, to
Subic Bay?
Subic Bay. Yeah. Went to Subic Bay in the Philippines, and then from there we of course went to Vietnam from there, and then we went to different times. We might go to Hong Kong, and after we pull our stint out in the Gulf, when our time came, usually it was after 30 to 35 days at sea doing missions, and then we would pull into port. And it could be Singapore, Hong Kong, the Philippines. Mostly was the Philippines. We just go back to the Philippines. There was that 2 in Japan we went to. Tokyo. Hong Kong was probably the best one. I think out of all of those.
Why was Hong Kong the best?
It was so much bigger than any of the ports that we pulled into, and it was more because it was a British colony at that time. It was friendly, I think friendlier to us when we got into Hong Kong, and it was a whole lot cheaper getting things done and seeing stuff, taking tours and buying souvenirs to take back home. I bought a lot of stuff to bring back, things like that, little souvenirs. And the food was good because you could eat in really posh places real cheap.
You go to the China Fleet Club?
I don't remember going to the China Fleet Club. I remember going to a rotating restaurant up on the top of a skyscraper. We went way up there on top, and it was a rotating restaurant. We went up there. That was when I was introduced to seafood, Chinese style, seafood.
Are you familiar with the China Fleet Club?
No.
China Fleet Club was like a big PX with all these shops in Hong Kong, had stores in there. You go and buy all these souvenirs and everything.
Well, there was a store there, big store. That's where I bought my stereo, as a matter of fact.
Well, that's called the China Fleet Club.
It probably was.
It's called the China Fleet Club.
We just
That's where all the military went, and it was built for the military.
Yeah.
Because all these
Yeah.
shops were in there.
Yeah.
It's like a big,
Yeah.
big department store.
It was an exchange, as far as I'm
Yes,
concerned. It was
yes,
just a big
yes,
exchange.
yes. That was a China Fleet Club.
Yeah, that was it.
Yep.
I was there. Yep, yep.
Where's the home port for the Kitty Hawk?
It was North Island, San Diego,
North Island, San Diego.
down in San Diego, right in North Island, the Naval Air Station, North Island, right out of San Diego.
Have any trouble with any Soviet ships off Vietnam?
Only one time when we were on our way over, going over to get on station, what they call on station in the Gulf, and the skipper came over and told us once we reached a certain parallel, crossed over, that we had to be on lookout for the Soviet planes that were looking for us. You know, it was a game they played. They tried to find us before we found them. And he said, you got to make sure, he said, when that Russian plane flies over, it had better be escorted when it flies over. So they would have the planes already lined up on the catapult, ready to go, and the pilots would just walk around them in a circle. You know, for 2 hours, they'd walk around that plane in a circle, so that if they said launch the ready aircraft, those guys could just climb in the cockpit and pow, they'd take off, and then they were to go catch that Russian bird that came over. And sure enough, he tried sneaking in on us, but we caught him first, and we escorted him as they flew over. We all stood up there and waved to him as they flew over, you know, and stuff, and caught him. It was just a silly game they played.
Did the Soviets do the same thing? Did they escort our planes? Or?
Well, they didn't have aircraft carriers over there.
Oh, they didn't?
Hmm.
Okay.
No, we were the only carriers over there.
Yeah. You were on the Kitty Hawk how long?
Year?
What is the range of the Kitty Hawk? Is it nuclear powered?
No, it was diesel powered.
Diesel. What is the range of the Kitty Hawk?
I really couldn't answer that question. It'd be because you'd have to talk to
Those
those kind of sailors that take care of that.
Okay.
I know we refueled at sea, and that was quite an operation.
How do you refuel at sea?
The fueling ship would come alongside the carrier, and then they would communicate with each other by radio and match the speed and the deal, so that they would raise and go up and down at the same time. And they would shoot a line over. It was called a bosun's line, and they had a shotgun that was just a small shotgun. They would shoot a lead over to the carrier, and the guys over there had a big net, and they'd catch that ball. It was a lead ball attached to a rope. They'd catch that and then start pulling that rope over, and that rope was tied to a bigger rope. They'd get that rope, and that rope was tied to a line,
Okay.
fuel line, and then they hook that to the winch, and they would winch over those fuel lines from that tanker over to the carrier, and they'd have like 4 to 6 lines going all at the same time for refueling and replenishment. And at the same time, a helicopter would go down and pick up goods off of that tanker, like dry goods and stuff, and they would fly it over to us. And they would fly those supplies from the tanker over there, you know, our canned goods stuff. We were taking off, and
I asked the range.
the range of the aircraft carrier. What,
Kitty Hawk.
you know, it seemed like we replenished about every 2 weeks, I think. Wasn't that about right? Because we took on stores, and we took on ammo, the bombs and stuff, and then fuel. And it seemed like about every 2 weeks. Of course, we'd refuel and replenish when we went into port, you know, when we'd pull into port. But while we were out there, we were out for, what was the longest time you guys were out? We were out 40-something days was our longest.
Well, I was only on the carrier for about 80 days is all I was on it.
You were out there, I mean, you were out at sea for 80 days? We weren't out for that long.
Yeah,
80 days?
yeah.
Wow, you guys really did a
Doing
long
the Tet
haul.
Offensive.
We did 40, because we had to take, in fact, I think we had to take the Ranger's place that something happened to it. I can't remember what it was, and they had to go back in, and we were supposed to go, and we had to turn around and go back and do their
Yeah,
time.
we were there during the Tet Offensive.
Oh, those
Start
were
of
that-
the Tet Offensive.
Was that Tet 68?
Yeah,
I was at Da Nang when Tet broke out.
See, I was after that, so I was in 70 and 71.
Yeah. What was your average day on the Kitty Hawk?
12 hour work day, you mean?
Well,
You had 12 hours on, 12 hours off.
What time would you get up in the morning?
6 in the morning, work till 6 at night.
And then what did you do in that time? You
Well, we kept the planes working,
had- I mean, you had,
fix the planes.
you had breakfast, and then when did your watch begin, or your work day?
Well, it started at 6 o'clock in the morning. I had to be in my space at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
So I'd get up at 5:30, go down and have breakfast, and then report to work at 6. And then we'd fix whatever maintenance problems on the planes. We worked on them through that shift, until they had launches or recoveries to do.
And you worked only on the radar planes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that squadron, you were attached to a squadron of certain aircraft, certain types of aircraft. And so that's all you worked on. You didn't work on anybody else's airplane.
Okay.
You just worked on your specific type of airplane.
Now, where would the airplanes go? Would they go over Vietnam, or where?
Wherever they sent them.
Wherever they sent them.
Wherever they sent them to go, I never knew where they were going.
Okay.
And a lot of times they just go off, like some of them needed more maintenance than we could handle on the ship. And when they got close enough in, they'd go off to the Philippines, and they had a overhaul facility over there.
Okay.
And to do some heavy maintenance that we couldn't do.
The depot
on the
maintenance?
ship. Yeah, depot type maintenance that we couldn't
Okay.
do on the plane either.
What's your most vivid memory of the Kitty Hawk?
Probably we had a brand new ensign aboard that was a pilot, training to be a pilot, and he came on after we were already over there, and he came on, and he was flying our plane, learning how to fly, and I almost said his name, I forgot, I said I'd never forget, Navarro, Ensign Navarro, and he was kind of a American Indian type guy, and we sent him off for the first mission, and they went off and did their thing. We flew 4 hours. The other planes could only fly 2 hours, and then they had to come back. We stayed on mission for 4 hours. So anyway, they went out, and he was coming in. So of course we all went up there on the flight deck to watch him come in and see how he was going to do when he came in, and we're watching on the TV screen, the monitor, and here he comes in, and you can hear him. He's going up and down trying to match the ship and stuff, and doing all this number. And he came in. When he came in, he was off center. You try to catch that wire, between certain deals on there. Well, he came in off center, way to the left. He came in too much to the left, or port, on that wire. And when he caught the wire, it shot out, and he went out. And we thought, boy, Bear said, man, he's going too far. He's going too far. And it stopped, and it was like in slow motion. That thing just stopped right there. The engines were still turning, and then it just fell over. And he dropped the port landing gear right into the catwalk, right off the flight deck. I mean, that tire had to be like half on, half off. He was so close to the edge of the flight deck, and he did a lot of damage to that plane. And he stayed with us. He was still there when we got back. I don't know what kind of review they did on him, but he punched that strut on the landing gear right through the wing, right through the wing of the plane. And that was one we had to put it down in the hangar. And then when we came back to the Philippines, we offloaded it. They had to offload it with a crane.
Yeah.
So we were down to 3 planes in, because we only had 4. We were down to the 3, so that they could overhaul it, because it was way more damage than we could handle on the plane.
You crossed the equator on the Kitty Hawk?
No, we never did. I kind of wanted to do that. I just kind of thought that'd be cool.
Yeah.
It was across the equator. Mm-hmm. So I'm still a pollywog. I never made it. Never made it across the equator. Did you guys go across the equator?
How long were you on the Kitty Hawk?
Well, almost a year.
A year.
We pulled out in August and came back in June. Came back in June. 11 months, I guess. So
So when you left the Kitty Hawk, where'd you go?
I had re-enlisted then and went to Spain. Went to Rota, Spain from there. And went over to a super secret squadron. It was, nobody knew anything about it. It was secret. You couldn't tell. No markings, nothing on the plane. And our mascot was the Sandy Man. You know, the little spy thing on the movies, the little shadow guy. He's always in the cape. That was our little logo. We had him painted on all the tails of the planes.
What'd you do over there?
No markings. Well, our planes were basically spy planes. They were, you know, they flew over it. Of course, they got a mission, whatever that was.
Was it the U-2, was it?
Oh, no. No, it wasn't anything like that. But you know, of course, we're over in Spain, so we were in the European theater over there. And so I don't know what they would do. They just take, again, that was one of those that had the big radar on top and the one on the bottom of the belly. And they would go out.
E2.
No, it was, well, ours was the E2 on the ship, but over in Spain, in Rota, that was the 121, the Willie Victor 121, all recip engines,
Yeah.
and then C-130s, and then they got the P3, which took the place of the 121.
EC-121.
The EC-121, exactly. And it was all super secret radar stuff. You know, they wouldn't tell you what they do. They'd fly over they'd get mission to go fly over someplace and take pictures. So they'd go over and take pictures. That's all I knew they do. And they'd come back and, you know, we just kept the planes fixed and kept them flying. That was all our job was. Those planes were so old, they were built, the 121s were built in the 40s. And we still had them in service over there in the 70s. And they ended up, they put one in a museum. They flew one to Florida. We burned one because they couldn't make the trip across. They were getting ready to take it, and they took it out and used it as a fire teaching deal. And we burned it at the end of the runway. I don't remember what happened to the fourth one, but I think now they're in that. Those planes are in the Confederate Air Force or whatever it is. They got them restored in museums.
Now, how long were you in the Navy?
20 years.
20 years. So you were in Spain. Where else?
After Spain, I went to Norfolk, Virginia, to the Naval Air Station in Norfolk. And I was an instructor there. And after that, instructor time, I went to, I stayed in Norfolk, but then I went in the reserve to teach reserves there. And that was with the, back again to the E2. But it was the new one, the E2C aircraft. Mine was the one I had on the ship was the E2B. This was the E2C, which was a lot more sophisticated, did a lot more stuff. So I taught the reserves how to work on that plane, which is the same plane I'd worked on the ship. Then after I left Norfolk, I went to Memphis, Tennessee, and was in a reserve squadron there, and still teaching reserves. And I became a career counselor there. And then after Memphis, I went to New Orleans, to the Naval Air Station in New Orleans. Worked on the A7. That's where I worked on the A7. A7 Echo, and the E model. And I worked on the A7 in New Orleans. And retired from there. That was my retirement. That was probably the most fun duty station to be at.
Why?
New Orleans. Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras.
So when did you retire?
I retired in 1987.
1987. What did you do after you retired?
Well, I came back home. I came back here. Helped the guy open Master Lube. Quick oil change place because I was a mechanic. I had applied at American Airlines, and they basically said, don't call us, we'll call you, type deal, because I thought I'd be able to get on with my experience. And I worked there for a little while, and then I went and worked at Walmart for 2 years. And then all of a sudden, American Airlines opened up and decided they needed aircraft mechanics. So I sent my application again, and where have you been? They acted like I just disappeared off the face of the earth. So I went to American Airlines and retired from there, and worked on civilian aircraft then, which was a whole different ballgame than working on military aircraft. So that's when I learned how to work with fiberglass. Working with them.
Would you join the Navy again?
Well, that's a good question. Would I join again? Knowing what I know now, I probably would. I don't know how much I would, if I would stick. You know, it's changed so much over the time since I was in, and I don't know how that would set well with me. But you know, now that I'm out and had it, I feel pretty good about what I did, and the benefits have really worked out well for me. You know.
I like your word association. I'll give you some words, you give me a reaction. The first one is boot camp.
Hard.
Kitty Hawk.
Huh. I don't know how to put that in one word.
No, not that in
Oh.
one word. No.
Kitty Hawk. Kitty Hawk. Adventure. Probably the biggest adventure of my life was the Kitty Hawk.
DAW 114.
The AW 114 was a learning experience for me. Way more technical in that aircraft than the others. So,
Ho Chi Minh.
Ho Chi Minh, well, Ho Chi Minh, what can you say about Ho Chi Minh? He was the reason I was over there, doing what I was doing. But I never met the man personally, but I don't know what I'd do if I'd see him, you know. That'd be a very interesting thing, but he wasn't stupid. He was a smart guy. But I don't think I want to have anything to do with him.
Lyndon Johnson.
Lyndon Johnson, he was a thorn to me, personally. That's just my personal deal. That he could try to control everything that he could from a desk in Washington, D.C. instead of turning it over to the ones that could do something about it, that felt like they could do something. I didn't really think much of him.
Richard Nixon.
Richard Nixon. I like Nixon. I think he was very smart. He was just made some mistakes.
How do you want to be remembered?
How do I want to be remembered? As an honest person, somebody who's honest, tells the truth, hard worker, and enjoyed the fun. Life is all about fun.
Anything
It's
else you
not
want to talk about?
I don't know what else it'd be.
Where'd you meet your wife?
I met Susan in the 2nd grade, right here in Bartlesville. Her aunt lived 4 houses up from me, and she came over there to be with her aunt and the kids in the neighborhood. You know, it was a place the kids liked to go because we played ball and all that kind of stuff. Right there. So we grew up together basically, you know, all the way through. And then of course I left in the Navy, and she went her way, I went mine. And then when I came back, and we got back together again when I got back here. And I was working at Walmart, as a matter of fact, when she came into Walmart. And we just kind of course, we were all different people,
Oh, yeah.
you know, at that time. Had our kids, and I had my kids, she had her kids, and that kind of stuff. But we just kind of, you know, remembering the old times and just hooked back up again. And the next thing you know, we were getting married.
Well, this is an excellent interview.
Yeah.
want to thank you for your service and thank you for the interview.
Well, thank you for your service, and you're welcome. Yeah.
And again, this is April 18th, 2018. My name is Joe Todd. This has been an interview with Dave Weldon in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Thank you.